Hi, and welcome to this week's hospitality roundup. So, only three stories that I'm covering this week. There's a few other things that have come out, but they're mostly political party pledges of what they would do if they get into power, and I'm not even going to bother covering those because a pledge made before an election is almost worthless. So we'll just see what happens if there is any change in politics. So, into the actual news that's been reported. So, the first one is a bit of a follow-up on last week. So, last week I covered that Stonegate had been not fined by the Pubs Code adjudicator, even though they had been found to break a lot of the rules over the years. So, this week they announced that they were having trouble refinancing their debts. Now, Stonegate have a debt of about £2.2 billion. This is a huge amount. 1.7 billion of that they got from when they bought out the Enterprise Inn group, which was about in 2020, in March 2020, just before COVID hit. So taking on a huge amount of extra debt and then not making any money was a really unlucky move for them. But they now own 4,400 or so pubs. They have 2.2 billion in debt, and they can't seem to find anywhere to refinance that debt. That means if they can't do that, they are not going to be able to make their debt payments. They are going to really struggle, and there is a massive chance that they will have to restructure or collapse. They're already starting to contact some of the landlords of their tenanted pubs to offer them the opportunity to buy out the leasehold on those pubs. So if you are a tenanted landlord with them, you've got a lease from them, there's a chance that you can buy it out and have it as your own freehold, so no longer as part of the Stonegate estates. From what I've seen so far, though, talking to a couple of the landlords that have been offered this, the deal isn't actually that great, and they're just holding on and seeing if they can get a better deal or if it gets sold on to a pub company, because several of the pubs are already being sold off to smaller pub companies who are taking them on. Don't know yet what's going to happen with those pubs, whether they're going to just continue as they are, which is unlikely, or whether we're going to see a bit of a change to how they're run. So we've just got to see with that. But it's kind of weird that the only paper that covered the struggling to refinance was The Guardian. All of the trade papers didn't actually cover that. They covered the point that Stonegate are actually back in profit now. So the quarter one, so that comes up to sort of like late January, early February-ish, they made a pre-tax profit of 27 million, which was compared to this time last year, a pre-tax loss of 17 million. So that is a massive turnaround, and it should hopefully allow them to be able to refinance. But it's strange that the good news is what some of the trade papers are focused on, rather than the fact that they are actually also struggling to meet their debt. So we'll see what comes with that, because a lot of it's conjecture at the moment, but it's worth keeping an eye on, because Stonegate are the biggest pub company in the UK by quite a long way. So the next article we've got then is the Scottish Government have agreed to put in a Scottish Pubs Code. And this will come into effect on October the 7th, as long as the relevant secondary legislation gets passed through Parliament. This sounds like a great thing, and it should be a great thing, but let's also not forget that there is already a pubs code in England, and they don't do anything, really. It's totally ineffective. Again, going back to Stonegate, getting caught out on a lot of stuff and not even being fined, not even having a slap on the wrist. So let's hope that when this does come in Scotland, it has a lot more bite and not just bark. Let's hope that then, with it being the same in Scotland and in England, we will start to see governments actually enforcing it universally across the country, because it really is needed. The last one, again, I mean, I tried to not do just bad weather this time around. I'll say bad news this time around, but it is, in a way. Breweries are now starting to get concerned about reports that are coming in about growing the hops and the malt. So, as I've mentioned before in one of these roundups, there is an issue with hop growth. The older varieties, the roots don't go down far enough for the water tables, where we've had lots of drought, especially in Germany. The newer varieties are fine, and you can get those, but the older varieties aren't around, so things like metal through, especially outside metal through, is really becoming an issue and are going to get very hard to get hold of. So brewers are having to change what hops they use. But one of the big problems we've got now is the UK weather, especially the amount of rain that we've had. The fields are flooded, they're waterlogged. It's been too wet to plant, and we're starting to see that those that have tried to plant, if they've either got half a field planted before it starts raining heavily again, or their equipment's getting clogged up. But in short, unless this weather drastically improves in the next couple of weeks, we are going to see a really, really bad malt and wheat harvest in the UK this year. That will in turn drive up the prices. A lot of the harvest that we have here is shipped abroad, and especially some of the specialty grains that we have, things like, the traditional ones like Maris Otters and those, they're not growing elsewhere, but there is a big demand for them elsewhere. So we're going to see prices go up, and this is not great for the brewing industry, which is already struggling with high prices. So we really, really need a change in the weather. Otherwise, what we might start seeing is a lot more low-strength beers that don't need as much malt, or we might start seeing adjuncts, brewing sugars being brought in to offset the costs of it. So there is going to be a change to the beers that we get, both in strength, flavour, body, hop, aromas, everything really, unless we get a massive change in the weather in the next couple of weeks, which is looking unlikely. So that's going to be a bit different this year. So that's it for this week. There isn't really a huge amount else that I've been picking up on. So nice, a short one. Cheers.